There's an air of going to London, a superior kind of stance. It's the way that they talk and the look profound, you can tell them at a glance. They're the ones who are leaving. It's the poise from right knee to the foot. And it's all of the rest who are stuck in the mud. Yes, it's us who are staying put. It's a definite kind of specimen on the platform set to leave, but was moments before a mere pedestrian. The change is quite hard to believe. Strolling into the station with a sort of nonchalant grace, with a look at the watch and a gaze at the clock, that's deeply inscrutable trace. The ticket is one for the season, not a mere cheap return for the day. Expressly profound, to be used overground, and under that's something to say. There's a look for the ticket inspector, the barriers held in contempt, with a look that goes right from the tip of the nose, as though the former was grossly unkempt. There's an air of going to London, especially if it's by train. There are tunnels and bridges and roads overhead, horizons that change on the plain. There's a rhythm that gets you completely, the sway of the wheels on the track. And never a thought that in a very short time you'll be making the same journey back. There's an air of going to London that one really should be on one's own. And if you've just bumped into someone you know, still you're inclined to go it alone. For there's something that's personal about it, and not something you'll comfortably share, like a walk on the beach. It's quite hard to reach, though you'd make a compatible pair. There are landmarks that are quite familiar, and motorways next to the rails, and sometimes the people transported in cars will look at you, some even wave. But there's always some view you've unheeded, something you've missed all the years, that you're not to know. If they've knocked something down, it's strange how the memory clears. There's a boy with his great uncle Ernest, both dressed to be dashing and bright, and one's of a school that's a very old tie, whilst the other is barely waist height. But they're both looking forward and eager, and not to be dimmed by the sight that the restaurant car says sorry, but closed, and the tea trolley's not till tonight. The graffiti on the station yards really has to be admired. With accuracy it's done at night, when the busy world's retired. Under bridges and brick embankments, it's not merely just for fun, for everybody on the train must wonder how it's done. There's a rhythm of arriving in London that's never quite equalled where else. And the smell can be really quite deafening when the car's ears are as quick as the pulse. The sounds that you see are as if never heard. There's not a familiar refrain. It's as if you're bewitched for the very first time when you've travelled to London by train. There are some who have come from the Midlands, and others from north of Carlisle. There are some who will come and go back in a day, whilst others will stay for a while. There are those who have thought of adventure, and others who'd see that as vain, but they've all got an air they're unwilling to share when they're going to London by train. Through the window can be seen all the traffic. The North Circular's at a standstill, and it's not very different when you look from the south. It's as if they had taken the very same pill. For though there are those coming up to London, whilst the northerners say he's going down, but for me it would say that it all stays the same when travelling by train to town. There's an air of going to London, dependent upon what hat you wear, or whether the polish that shines on your shoes matches the gleam of your hair. But the coat that it is you are wearing is possessed of a regal design that matches the style which you might hope might beguile London's cosmopolitan line. There's an idea of going to London that the platform's a magical place, And the rails that were once melted molten white steel leave that line of your eye with a grace. There's something about them that's pleasing. The gleam where the heavy wheels run takes you off on a journey before you embark, or the travelling has even begun. Officials and police make their presence. At times there's a military feel, and everyone's processed by ticket machines and the video link they conceal. But for all of this stern resolution, when you slip from the station's domain, you're suddenly free and it's all liberty when you're going to London by train. The man with his feet put upright on the seat, or the girl with her face in the book, and there's always that air that no body will share, averting all eyes with a look. Only a minor distraction, such as a child who will wildly exclaim, "But Daddy, it's true, I must go to the loo," will make everyone smile on the train. There's an air of romantic persuasion when you travel that's not just a crush, a calm love affair that's endured alone, a passion play all in a rush, for she may get off sooner than you do, she may catch your look and go plain. It is a fantasy that you must keep to yourself when you're going to London by train. The aura of going to London is one that's decidedly rare. Desperately sane is a journey by train, and all from a comfortable chair. Only sensible conversation, such as a smile or a glance from the brow, is enough to suffice without breaking the ice, and you're never quite here in the now. What is the book that she's reading? It's quite obvious she's done this before. A riveting chapter, it must be, no doubt, for she's never once looked at the floor. I'm busy reading the paper. Concentration has gone on the wane, for it's all I can do to not stare at the view when I'm going to London by train. It's the ticket that takes you to London that isn't a very great cost. But it's always the one that you keep getting out. You're convinced that it's going to get lost. And just when you think you don't need it, and you've balanced concern in your brain, there's a voice at your shoulder that says, "Tickets please," when you're going to London by train. There's an aspect of going to London that it's a freedom like no other kind. And just for a while you're right out of the pile, completely unknown and unsigned. No stamp of conjecture upon you. You can be complex or plain, and it's never so crass to be part of the mass when you travel to London by train. There are many I know who call it the smoke. For me it remains to be seen, for I've never returned feeling choked to the lungs, and who doubts the health of the Queen? Now I think that I've said what I want to, but I'll say it one more time again, that you never quite know how it's going to go when you travel to London by train.